Let's start off. The step forward training that we do for that I'm bringing to you today is a really small segment of a longer training that is pretty popular in the state. I'll tell you a little more about it if you haven't. Obviously, many of you have heard about Emerge at this time, so I'll be able to pass through some of that. But I will say the words when we get to those slides so that if anyone wants to view the recording after the fact, they have the space to do that. All right, so we did. My name is Ashley McCurry. I'm the executive director at Emerge. Prior to this role, I did political fundraising here in Maine for the Democratic Party, for Mike Michaud for governor, and for other local candidates. I've been on the Emerge Maine board for several years, and I was the Emerge finance and fundraising trainer since I think right after I graduated and on and on. And so I really, really have a strong passion at Emerge, not just because it's my job, but because getting more women into politics is I feel like it's my role in life. And so my like human purpose, no pressure. But I really, really love training women each and every year to run for office and win. Winning is the best part. Emerge was really inspired. Emerge Maine is actually 15 years old, but this is our 15th year. Happy birthday to us. We were really inspired by our vice president's call that while she's the first woman in the position, she won't be the last. And so in the last couple of years, we really, really, really revamped our desire to train the new American majority. We started with a group of women in California wanting to train one woman to run for office and thinking there should be a training program. And now our goal is to train 100,000 women in the country by 2035. We'll talk a little more about that as it moves forward.
Would it be appropriate to ask you at this point, as I recall, you have not just Maine, but all of the states that have Emerge have a significant number of women who get elected.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there is a slide for that. So yes, and you planted the seed. I actually have to close some of your faces because you're preventing me from actually reading my slides here. So our vision is to change the face of power, politics, and leadership. That's always been our vision, although the ways around that have improved in the last 15 years. And our goal is to have policies that are responsive to all. And we train Democratic women leaders. So Emerge's mission is to increase the number of Democratic women leaders. You have to be a Democrat to enroll in our program at this time, but we're actually starting a C4 to address the needs of other progressive candidates and leaders that might not identify with either the title of woman, self-identifying as a woman, self-identifying as a Democrat. There's a lot of work and steps we have to take to move forward in that direction because we want to make sure we do it in a way that is inclusive and correct. But that's right now our mission has been Democratic women to run for office from diverse networks all across. And we do that through recruiting, training, and providing a powerful network. And we lift as we climb. If you see any faces that you know in this graphic, throw out some names in the chat. I'm curious to see, this graphic was picked intentionally to talk about how we lift our women in our network as we climb through the political pipeline. So if there's anyone you know or any faces that you recognize, throw them in the chat. It's a little pop quiz. While you're doing that, I'll start talking a little bit about our program. So everybody in this slide has actually been an Emerge Maine trainer or has been in the class in the last year. And so what we have here is 15 years of some of the training and some of the women who have really broken glass ceilings. We actually have trained, it's Emerge women who have actually trained the first Somali American candidates and elected officials on both the South Portland and the Lewiston city councils. Our training has helped lift the first African-American woman who has ever been assistant majority leader of the Maine House. We have trained the youngest assistant woman that's been the assistant majority leader in the Maine Senate. We've had the first U.S. Senate candidate, emerge trained U.S. Senate candidate in the country come through from Maine. And I'm sure I will miss some of the highlights, but what we've been doing and what we've been known for in the last 15 years is bringing women up the pipeline and then asking them to circle back and lift women up. And so we have all of our women that have come through the program either financially give back, or they serve as mentors to the current class, or they come back as trainers or panelists. Because as we keep breaking glass ceilings, we have to keep learning how to support women as they reach higher and higher. A very fun job to have, but our training improves each and every year because of that. Are you moving it for me, or am I moving it?
You are moving it.
Oh, sometimes it doesn't move for me, so I didn't know if I...
Most folks put names in the chat.
Perfect. I see that. Aha, I see Rachel Talbot Ross, Shenna Bellows. Oh, first woman Secretary of State. Of course, I couldn't believe in Maine. I can't believe I missed Shenna. Yep, Shenna, Margaret, Janet, Charlotte. Wonderful. You're on a first name basis, Pam. I love that. Our network around the country, we have 27 affiliates and over 4,500 alumna, graduates in the program. And in Maine, we have 374 graduates, over 60 in elected leadership positions. Right now, we have 10 active municipal candidates because there's some municipal elections in some towns. I know people don't think it's election season, but it kind of is, or definitely is for those candidates. And we expect over 65 legislative and local candidates to be emerge graduates in the next cycle. So we're busy and we're ready, and our training works. We actually have the privilege of seeing an 87 to 93% win rate of our emerge trained candidates. And that's implying that is actually also affected by when emerge women run in the same races with each other. So we really navigate those races as delicately as we can. We run for the same seat, not against each other. So today, now that you've heard a little bit about emerge, many of you already knew, we were going to find our why, what's our story, and why is storytelling important. We're going to turn our passion into a position, and then we're going to build a path, and we're going to talk about preparing yourself for political victory when you run. I want to make sure both of my slides are on the same way. So finding your why, it's really important to find your why when you're thinking of considering running for office. Why are you here? And your story really matters. We have really found that emerge candidates win because they share their authentic selves. We do not turn women into cardboard cutout versions of what you think politicians should look like. We really want women to be who they are and genuinely talk about their lived experience and how that lived experience will translate to their passion and their activism and their dedication to making their communities stronger. Okay, so we want to talk about how issues affect and connect us to our policies. Our values connect us actually. Oh, did I skip? Sorry. So we're going to start by talking about our story, and our story can kind of tie into three ways. Our stories tell us what issues we feel passionate about. Our values help us to identify why we're passionate about the greater vision and what the greater vision of our communities are. And then the stories really connect us to each other. So let's use an example for that. Let's talk about an example for that. The issue may be that I oppose cuts to SNAP benefits. That's opposing cuts to SNAP benefits. It's an issue that we can debate. It's a policy issue that we can debate. We can talk about that. You can have a Facebook war about that on social media. Hooray, hooray. Our value, though, is that in the richest nation in the world, no one should go to bed hungry. That might be something that we believe, right? As Democrats, that's something many Democrats believe in. And the story that we tell when we're talking about our messaging, when we're in rooms and when we're trying to connect to voters may be, when I was 2 years old, my family relied on food stamps. I am who I am today because I got the nutrition that I needed then. We need to preserve this lifeline for all families today and tomorrow. Okay? So now it's your turn. I would like you to write down one issue that you care about. And then we're going to connect it to a personal why. So we're going to take 2 minutes to do that. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. If you want to write more than one issue, you're more than welcome to, but we'll probably only cover one of them. All right. This can be a really new and vulnerable experience because most of us are not used to connecting things that irritate us or things we want to change in our community to a political policy. That's not a skill that we're born with. So it's okay that if this isn't perfect, there's no right answers today. If anybody has, we do have a small enough group where if anybody does want to share an issue and we can talk about how we can tailor that to a story, we do have some time to do that.
I can share mine. My biggest passion is that elective offices reflect the diversity of our population.
Wonderful. So what about in your local community though? Because that might not be something, that's not a campaign message that talks about you, Pam. So what's an issue in your community that you might be able to, that you feel passionate about, that you might talk about to tell these voters that might not know you about you? I guess that would tell me you're a feminist.
You think?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I guess as a young person, I was always, according to my mother, marching to the beat of a different drummer. So I didn't feel heard or valued. And I think it was not only problematic for my self-esteem, but I think we lost a contribution in my family had there been more openness to a different point of view.
That's true.
And the way I see that in our community right now, the irony is that our town is a blue town, but we're run by conservatives. So for me, that's really out of balance.
So there isn't a Democratic voice on the council.
Right.
Okay. Kristen.
Okay, so my issue that I tend to focus on is equity in education. And it's so interesting that it's really evolving, most recently based on, of course, the pandemic and the impacts in our school settings. But also, I have had the opportunity to interact quite a bit with Kristen Maley, who is currently the president of the Good Shepherd Food Bank. And really, my interactions with her and learning more about the food bank has just really re-emphasized the need for, and Ashley, you just mentioned this in your example, the links between health and stability, emotional stability, physical stability, and food, and the importance of that foundation when it comes to education and learning. And I'm thinking specifically of like pre-K to 12, but it also applies to university and college settings as well, of course. So really for me, it's equity and opportunity and education, not only when it comes to resources and access to those resources within our school systems, but also when it comes to the individual students and their families, and ensuring that they do have that healthy foundation that's necessary for productive learning to occur.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's talk about turning that passion into a position. An example that we have, the SNAP benefits example, or sometimes the example I use is I moved to a rural town and I got really interested in representation, right, Pam, right? We might be in the same circles. And I thought, ooh, where can I take that passion of representation to a new position? So let's talk about what are some options we can land here and some of the things we want to think about. So take a second and visualize you at the end of your life winning a Lifetime Achievement Award. All right, if you were to win a Lifetime Achievement Award, what would it be for? And instead of just being an awesome person, right, get a little more specific. If you are trying to end hunger, for whom and how long would you like it to take you, and how would you do it? Right? So you're winning a Lifetime Achievement Award. What are you recognized for? And what's the speech you're writing, right? When you think about that, sometimes it'll help you figure out where do you want to focus your passions. The next thing to think about, and there's a picture of a pothole. What's a tangible thing you can fix? What are tangible things in your community that you can work for and work toward? And then the third thing you want to think about, and I have a picture of Michelle Obama here at the grocery store. How much do you want it to affect your life? When you are thinking about a position in politics, right, whatever that visual looks like, it may be bigger than what you need to run for to make the tangible actions move forward, right? Do you want your whole life to be in the public eye? Do you want to take into those types of leadership roles where people know you? Or do you want to be able to go to the grocery store without people knowing you? These are real things that people have to consider about running for office, right? The school board, city council, county commissioner, there are plenty of positions where you can serve your community, where you don't have to be in the public national eye. But on the flip side, you may want that type of commitment. And I take these three lists and I sort of put them in a Venn diagram. And it helps me think when I want to talk and coach someone to run for office, we really need to think about what's the bigger picture that they want to achieve in their life. What are their life goals? And they want to be memorized. What do they want their legacy to be? What are some tangible things that they can work on to make that happen? And what kind of lifestyle do they want to get there? Any questions on that? And here are some key considerations. How much passion do you have for any of the issues that you are working on, any of the issues that you're writing about when you're writing your list of the things you want to work on? How much impact do you think you can have? And what's your capacity to give back to that issue or those issues? There are like 5 bazillion elected positions all over the country, and many that most people don't even think of. I always thought of like running for president or the state legislature. It didn't really occur to me that we had commissioners or what they did when I was starting my political journey. I don't know if I knew the superintendent of public education and what that was. I hadn't considered being a library trustee, and I didn't realize the nature of how much the library budget is important to the communities. What's an assessor and what do they do, and is that elected? So there are many, many, many different positions that are elected and that serve the public that are not just the big positions that you see. We don't want to rule those out. And then where do you want to run? Run where you are, or would you consider moving? Would your constituents would be your boss. Who do you want to work for? It's not a indicator that you can't run for office if you have a different view or maybe a more progressive view than your constituents. It just means that there are additional challenges that you face when you are running to represent a group of people that are differently aligned with you. So you'll have to figure out how to navigate that talking, how to build those relationships, how to navigate those messages. You need a strong base to win. So where do you have a base in your community, and where do you need to build a base of support? And is this a place where you want to be strategic? Only 10% of first-time candidates win, but we talk about in our program running and losing to amplify your name, to get your name out there for other positions. And so can you think about running for office and then losing and then running again with a stronger campaign? Have you considered if you want to run for office during a presidential year where outcome might be bigger, or on an off year where there are less voters, but maybe less of a campaign? Are there referendums on the ballot that might hurt your chances of running for office, or hurt your chances, or bring out the voters that might not vote for you? These are all strategic things you can think about when you're deciding where you want to run for office and when you want to run for office. Questions on that slide? All right. And then when considering when you're going to run, you might want to wait until there's an open seat, or you might want to challenge an incumbent. What else will be on the ballot when you're making those choices? And then in your personal relationships, I say, look around at who you identify as your friends and family, and figure out where you have support. Do you have the support in your home to run? Do you have support in your network to run? If you have children, if you don't have children, if you have pets to take care of, if you have an ailing parent, what are the responsibilities that you have around you genuinely? And what are the things that you can focus on or delegate out? How are your personal finances? Do you have to take time off of work to run a stronger campaign? And are you able to do that? Do you have to fundraise? Do you have to self-fund some of your campaign? I really don't love that. Am I prepared to win? Being honest about if there's a path to victory in that seat. Am I prepared to do the work to launch a competitive campaign for this seat? That is a hard question to ask, and sometimes really hard to be really honest about. But if we don't know, we can't make these decisions on our own. Can I make a compelling case for why I'm the best candidate for the seat? Now, again, we do talk about in our open about what would happen if you run and lose. There's plenty of opportunities where women run on really strong platforms, get their message out. And even though they lose, they're able to continue doing some of that work because they really built a base and a big base of support talking about these issues. So what are the benefits of running and losing? When might the costs of running and losing outweigh the benefits? Are you able to help people in elevating your name and in your community, in your issues in your community? And the key takeaway, plenty of successful politicians have run and lost. What's important is to do it strategically. Your turn. So in the chat, you have to write your name and what office you're considering running for. You do not have to sign it in blood or stone, but it does change something in our brains when we write down Ashley McCurry for Portland City Council, Ashley McCurry for Naples City Council, wherever I live at the time. I got confused there. And so when you see that, when you actually get the opportunity to see that, it shifts the game. So you don't have to write it in blood, but everybody has to write a seat that they'd consider running for that they're looking at in this training. You're not beholden to it, but I will call. Hey, South Berwick Town Council, Kristen Card for Hampton Town Council. I don't live in Portland, so I'll make sure to put in writing Naples. Pam. All right, next. Now building your path. How do you prepare yourself and your network to run? Yes, Kate, I didn't realize you were in on this and not just the helper. This is great. You are running for office. We'll follow up offline, Kate. All right, so how do you prepare yourself and your network to run? Is there any guesses? if you were going to start today to prepare your network to run, before I throw them up on the slide, any guesses on what you might need to do? One of the first things you need to do to prepare yourself to run? Starting from scratch.
A really defined mission statement.
A mission statement. Who works in nonprofits? I love that. Anything else right now? I cancel the training, I lose service. What do you do right now to prepare yourself to run? All right, I guess I'll tell you. You're doing it. You're running for office. What would you need to be true to be 100% ready for yourself to run? Oh, I gave away the secret, but that's okay. What are some things? I do want to take the time to talk about it. So some women maybe will have to consider, remember I talked about family support. So does anybody have to talk to anybody in either extended family or friend group? Is there anybody that they would have to talk to before they decided to run for office? Raise your hand. Okay. Would anybody have to get their pets taken care of in any capacity? Who will feed the dog? Is there anybody with four-legged animals or beings, or two-legged animals or beings? Do you have kids? You can use them. They can be pets too. So anything they have to take care of that they'd have to check in, right? Would anybody have to negotiate anything at work? Right? Would anybody have to negotiate anything in their finances? I'd have to take time off of work or a sabbatical to run for the type of campaign I would have to run here for sure. Would anybody need to figure out how to open a bank account? I'd have to Google it. For a campaign, I'd have to Google it. I'd have to learn some skills. Would anybody have to figure out a schedule? Is anybody a planner and they'd want to plan out when they were going to knock doors? Would anybody need to research whose doors to knock on? Where would you read it? What doors do you knock on? What are you going to do? So anything else anybody wants to add? Things they would have to do to prepare themselves to run?
Ashley, I think also identifying your allies and support networks within whatever district, town, city you're planning to run in, and identifying those that you may be affiliated with based on your own kind of political identifications, I'll use that word, or any other partnerships, that organizations that may support your your mission, your values in your local community.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Anybody else with anything they think they would need to do to get 100% ready to run? Well, there's a lot more, and you guys aren't saying anything, which is bananas to me, and maybe a peaceful place to be. You will never be 100% ready to run. And what we find is that women, more than other folks, will wait until they have it all 100% ready, and then they will run, which will really preclude us from running ever. And so at Emerge, while we try to tell you, do the planning, take the 2 years, do whatever you need to do, if the opportunity arises, sometimes you got to jump in with both feet, figure it out, and be brave. So it is absolutely okay if you are not 100% ready to run when you do. And there are still things you can do now to prepare for success for whenever you run. So we'll start with personal preparation. Here are some things you can do personally to kind of set yourself up to be a stronger candidate when you run. Talk to the personal relationships that you have in your life and make sure that the reality of running is clear to them. Do you have their support, and what does that look like? Does that mean they bring you food once a week? Does that mean they're going to drive you around and knock doors? Does that mean they're going to house sit for you when you go have a house party? Or does that mean they're going to throw you a house party? What does it mean in your personal relationships? Caregiving, what are your caregiving responsibilities? What can be shifted? Finances, how are you going to cover your personal finances of the campaign? How are you going to make time to fundraise? How are you going to make time to collect the checks for clean elections if you're running in that direction? Work, this is tied into fundraising, but it can also be tied into just scheduling. Can you take time off? Is your employer supportive? Can you actually be politically active with your employment? Some places of employment you can't be. And skeletons, at the very least, you and your team need to be aware of any skeletons in your closet. You just need to know what people could Google and come out, not that it precludes you from running, but you need to make sure you know how to handle it if you have to take a punch. There's really nothing we haven't seen. So any questions that you have, contact us directly and we can give you some tips on or connect you with someone who might have had a similar struggle to you and how they messaged about it in their campaign. Your turn. So what's one thing you can do now to prepare yourself to run as a human? And you can throw that in the chat. We don't have to popcorn style that. But if there's one thing that you can do now to prepare yourself as a human, put that in the chat. A robot vacuum sounds like a great campaign investment. Haven't seen that ever happen as in a finance reports yet, but I think it could be probably argued with ethics. Perfect. Now, how can we prepare you as a candidate? Now, I put that separately, human and candidate, because sometimes it does have to be separate. Your family and personal life does have to be separate from your political life. I'm a really strong advocate of that. So one, get informed. Choose a few issues that you can care deeply about and read about them frequently. Not all the issues, okay? I see a lot of women do this. They want to know everything about everything. Just a few. Pick a few issues. You do not have to be educated on 100% of everything to run for office. Get involved. Think about how you want to make an impact. Is there a neighborhood association that you can join? Is there a nonprofit organization that's really local to your community that you can be a part of? Gain the skills. Go to a training program. There are tons of training programs that will teach women or people the nuts and bolts of campaigns. And the reality is, do them, right? It's an industry. There are people who have their careers working in politics, helping candidates. You are not expected to know with your nursing degree how to file campaign ethics reports. Like you're not expected to know that. So find people, get the skills, get into the networking program so that there's a team around you. I will obviously plug Emerge, but there are plenty of training organizations that will teach the nuts and bolts of campaigns. Practice resilience. Whew. Campaigns are hard, and stepping into politics is a place where people have to disagree. So you are stepping into something where passionate opinions, no matter what, there will be discourse, there will be challenging discourse. There will also be feedback, plenty of it constantly. And it's tough. So learning how to keep up your energy and stamina, there's a lot of skills, but anyone who's been in political work for more than 6 years can probably give you some tips on resiliency and skill building. It's mostly about separating work and life, actually. It's very separate. And practice delegation. This is really hard. If you're someone who tends to want to do it all, or you're a perfectionist, or you're someone who is trying to save the world, which is a lot of the women that we see. So practice delegating key tasks to people that you trust. I won't force you guys to keep listing things because we do have a small group, but if there's one thing from the last slide that you can do to prepare yourself to be a strong candidate, think about that and take one thing with you. And then how do you prepare your network? Analyze your network. Who's already a part of your local base? who's in the network and who should be in the network, right? Somebody mentioned Chamber of Commerce, I think, or Chamber. Yep, Kristen, you mentioned Chamber of Commerce. I have no relationships with the local Chamber of Commerce. So as soon as you mentioned that, I thought, oh, I should get involved, right? Like that's a smart thing to do. Think about who you don't have that would be the groups that would help you get elected in your community, not just for a transactional relationship, but look at getting involved now before you even announce your candidacy. So you start from a place of service, and so that you deepen your relationships with these communities. It's honestly a great place so that you're not just a talking head candidate and say, hi, I'm now running for office, so I'm interested in the work you do. That's so obvious to every organization. And so really getting involved in places now, you can be thoughtful about who you need in your base, but just being a little more service oriented in your communities now will help you be a stronger candidate, particularly for those areas that, if you're a Democratic woman, that are really, really blue, really, really red. Growing your network, who can you add as the people in your network, and how can you deepen those relationships with folks? I have a spreadsheet of acquaintances of political friends that get a certain version of the Christmas card. Maybe less pictures of my kids, but how can you deepen those relationships so that you can have long-standing relationships with people that can help you? And developing your network, how can you prepare your network for an eventual run for office? One of the great ways to test your relationships is to ask people to be involved in something. Ask your network to get active in their community or in a festival or in something that you're asking them to volunteer for that's not you. See who engages, see who steps up for you. These are the people that are probably going to be more committed to you as a candidate and maybe even will help you run your campaigns. Power mapping, who is there, right? Take your holiday birthday list, add some Facebook friends, but make sure you get their names and numbers. Friends, family, and colleagues that have your back, those in your life that have helped you along the way, members of groups you're associated with. And what does your networks provide? It's more than just campaign votes. It may be moral support, child care support, expertise, fundraising support, access. We say access because there's nothing more valuable than a woman who can introduce you, or a person who can introduce you to another person, right? And in the Emerge Network, I use the term woman a lot, but really like anybody who's politically astute that's interested in being a bridge to someone else. I don't know Pam that well, but Kristen knows Pam. Kristen, can you send a warm intro email to Pam and I? I really want to have an opportunity to chat with her. So those types of access points is really, really valuable. Status or identity, and resources or information. Who are you missing? Opinion leaders, business leaders, religious community leaders, issue-based organizations in your area, activists, electeds, endorsing organizations, Democratic committee members. Think politically, think about the people who vote, think about the people who are stepping up in your community. Are those people, are you connected to those people, as well as are you connected to the voters? Growing your network. So let's take a minute to brainstorm. Is there anybody who had any other ideas on ways they can grow their network that they'd like to share in this group? And there's no strange ideas. Anything that you're thinking of to grow your network can probably be used by one of these women in their network without competing with you.
I'm doing local, so I'm thinking PTOs.
Yes. Yes.
Social
PTOs.
volunteer groups, the Rotary.
Perfect. That's absolutely right. Yep. Anybody else?
I'll say it, my sorority sisters.
Yes.
Like, dig back at college, like somebody might know someone.
So I'm also thinking any kind of neighborhood groups within my local community, as well as through the Chamber of Commerce. While I am involved with one of the programs here, there are two others that it would be beneficial for me to get to know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Kate says the first name of the people at the corner store, the library, and the UPS store. Yes. Those are the people that actually know what's going on in the town. They know what people are saying. They know what people are grumbling about. Absolutely. Anything else not mentioned? We will often talk about equity and justice at this time in our training when we're in the 70-hour program, where if it hasn't been mentioned, we talk about just looking and making sure that your campaign advisors and the people around you come from diverse lived experiences, particularly members of the new American majority, right? We're looking at Black, Brown, Indigenous, single, unmarried, and LGBT identified people. And if those folks are not part of your network and they are not part of your campaign teams, dig deeper. So join a board, volunteer, join a social board, social club, run for a homeowners association board. I took that advice. It's more work than you think, but homeowners association boards, that's where people are feisty. Engage in your local PTA. Attend meetings as best you can ahead of time. Show up and care before you're announcing your candidacy. And then deepen your network. I won't keep making you brainstorm here, but we do keep talking about service here, and we want to make sure the message of getting out there and actually being part of your community and getting to know people in your community before running for office. I can't tell you how many candidates are like, I want to run. They announce running, and then they don't have the network and they're confused why. Show that you're actually committed to the work. Join something, do something with the intention of making the community better, and do it with the mindset behind in the corner of your mind. If I was going to run for office, how could I talk about this? Right? It's not transactional. It's committed to yourself and your political journey. And I think it feels transactional to do it that way. But if we don't start thinking long-term like this, we're actually not going to gain positions of power the way that we need to, particularly in communities that weren't made for us, right? So if we're trying to be in communities and spaces that weren't built for women, we have to think about how to be stronger candidates. And some of that is in long-term relationship building. Help someone find a job. Recruit other people to boards and commissions. Recruit people to positions that maybe will help you if you run for office in the future. Refer people to other reporters. Take the time to write letters of recommendation, offer to help, offer to train, offer to support. Work on other people's campaigns. I can't tell this enough. Like, don't have the first campaign you ever work on be yours. Volunteer for other people and write checks, even if they're small. Be the one to write the first checks when the people around you are running for office, because that's really memorable. And activate your network. Start to engage your network around politics. Who's responsive? Who's actually paying attention? Who does what they say they will? And who's skilled at doing what, right? Your best friend might be the most organized person and the only person you can take feedback from without being offended. Great. Can that person be your campaign manager? They don't need to have campaign manager skills. But imagine if you knew you were going to have her be your campaign manager. Could you get your best friend to sign up for a campaign training a year or two before your race so that they know they're going to be on your team from day one? Next steps. What's next for you, and how can you lift as you climb? What can we do with the next month to make our communities stronger? I'll give you an example because I talked about being on the Homeowners Association board. In the next month, I'm putting out a newsletter to the Homeowners Association, and I am making sure that my name and my picture is on that newsletter, because I'm going to run for office eventually in a few years. And so right now, people are going to see my name and my picture on a Homeowners Association newsletter, and that's going to go out in the next month. What can you do in the next month to increase your visibility to be a stronger candidate?
So Ashley, for me right now in my community, I really think it's continuing my involvement with our Hamden Dems committee and showing lots of support, signs, whatever other activities the 3 candidates that we're putting forth right now need working up to election day, because that's really, for me, starting to build my local network.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Anybody else?
For me, I'm getting clear about why I don't want to run for office, but what I can do that's more effective for my community. I'm a big picture person. So even when you ask us that first question, I'm way up here. But what I'm really good at is connecting the dots. And so as I think about this, what I am beginning to do in my own community, which is to get involved in some of the committees I care the most about. Maybe I end up being on one of those committees at some point, but right now, I really don't want to be on the select board, although they need me. But I'm really realizing that's not where my gut is about being in office. It's about making sure we have right, good people in office, and mostly competent women.
And maybe it's mentoring them. Maybe it's mentoring a leader that you see that will be the person to run for office.
Yeah. Identifying them too. I mean, I live in a sleepy little community, but now we're beginning to pay for having been a little too asleep. And so I'm seeing that as my niche in all of this, is really figuring things out from behind the scenes. I don't mind being up front, but I don't think it's an elected office. I think it's about getting the right people into office and engaged. And that I do well.
That's important work. Very important. Julie or Jessica or Kate, do you have anything you want to do in the next month? Even a small thing. All right.
Oh, go ahead, Jessica.
I am actively volunteering for like our faith formation program at church. So those are like the types of things that are just continuing to build in my community. We are also on a community board that's bringing back a home for the holidays type thing. So we took a year off for COVID. We're redoing it and renovating bringing some rejuvenated life into an existing event and trying to make it as safe as possible.
Is your name on whatever the promotions are of those events?
No, but I am active. I am currently running for office. So I have been really hesitant to take pictures or post involvement for anything that I'm in, because I don't want to be seen as that person that's just doing this because I would like to try to be elected. I just want to be as sincere and as true to myself as possible. So, while I'm at these events, I may tell people that I'm running for town council, but most of the time they already know.
Do you feel like it's being insincere when you're communicating what you're actually doing?
I don't like being super pushy. I would rather be kind of judged on the merits of like my own kind of brand that I've put out there for years. I'm a single mom, I'm a professional. So I just don't want to like tag on to too many things that could be a distraction to what I'm trying to come across as.
I don't know Jessica enough to call her out, so I will move the conversation away from Jessica, and I will say that sometimes, maybe not with Jessica, but sometimes when women say those things, it's really masking an inability to ask for help and a discomfort in promoting themselves. And I will not assume that for Jessica, but I will say that if that was something that anybody was struggling with, I would advise them to get a close friend to write about you right? Get a close friend to write about the things that you're doing, to get a close friend to take the pictures and write the letter. And instead of promoting it from, for instance, if it was Pam, maybe I could send it on behalf of Pam on Pam's campaign email website, or I could be the one to push it and post it, because you are doing good things for the community, Pam, in this hypothetical scenario, but no one knows about it. And the women that are not promoting themselves may not win, right? Because you're a good person, but you're just feeling uncomfortable with promoting the things. But there are more egotistical candidates out there that are not going to do as good of a job as you, that will promote themselves, that will be clear about what they are doing and what relationships they are building, and they will win. And they will be the ones to serve in elected office and make decisions for the community. So if you are actually doing good things, and you are in your faith-based communities, and you're making the baskets, and you're, doing home for the holidays, or whatever the things are that you're doing, put your name on it. And I will say, it's very uncomfortable. I understand that. I hate it too. I don't even like it for Emerge. But people don't know or have the mental capacity to hold on to every good thing their candidates are doing. So you actually have to be a little louder. You have to be a little more aggressive than you probably feel. I once heard a feedback that your closest circle does not like the messaging you use for your campaign, because your closest circle are not the people that are going to help you win. You need to communicate about yourself to people who don't know you at all. So it's always going to feel a little uncomfortable for the closest circle of people, because they already love you. They don't need to be told why to love you. But the communication, when you're really promoting yourself, that's for the people that don't love you yet, right? They're going to love you, but they don't know about you yet. So that's not directed toward Jessica. Just if anyone is struggling promoting themselves, that's something I'm familiar with too. Find someone else to do it. And a best friend is a good one. I've actually closed people's social media on themselves and made like a campaign manager or a best friend run it, so that the candidate isn't getting tripped up on what is being said about them. They have passed it on and they are no longer looking. And that is, it's a really effective strategy.
If I could just follow up with that, it is the number one thing that I see holding women back, and that's the ability to assert ourselves and not think of it as bragging or false or whatever, because I just see that all the time. We're getting much better at it, but we got to get better.
Anybody else French Canadian? Because I feel as though like I went out the gate with my like call to the community as like, I was raised with humility, and like, I will let my actions speak for myself. And I was really like in people's face, but I can understand your point, Ashley, of like having my girlfriends write something on my behalf and having that be really impactful, especially if they're well connected.
Oh yeah, because they actually see you. You see you, not you again, Jessica, I'm not calling you out, but we see us with flaws and insecurities and what we're not good at and what we didn't get to. And other people see us as competent, strong, empowered, fantastic women of brilliance. And the reality is that bridge seems to me to just be somebody else. It's just our egos that are beating us up on that. So probably a deeper therapeutic conversation for another day. But that's why the Emerge Network is so important, because the women and the candidates will call us. So they'll call me or one of their mentors, or they'll call someone that's assigned to be supporting the candidates that week. And they can say like, no, I don't want to promote this. And then the person on the other end of the phone is like, yes, push that out there, send that press release. I'll do it for you. Do it by the end of today, or I'm going to call you back and make sure you did it. And that little bit of push is really what we need when we're running for office, because running for office is lonely and scary, and it's all about putting yourself out there. So having a good friend in the network, someone who gets it, will help you push through that. And fundraising for yourself is not easy either. As a fundraiser, I understand that fundraising is hard in its own right, but fundraising for yourself, even I haven't touched that. So we're coming up on almost a few minutes. Kate, you don't even have to let me know because my own timer got me. So potential next steps: apply to be part of the Emerge program for 2022. Applications close November 4th. We don't need you to know which seat you're running for. We just want you in the room and ready to support women in office. Join the email list to stay up to date on networking opportunities. You don't have to be Emerge trained to come to an Emerge networking opportunity. We don't care. We just want more women in office. So come and be part of it. There's a whole culture of us helping each other and getting on each other, jumping on each other's door knocking shifts and bringing the casserole and doing the things, and help another woman run for office. Help another person run for office that is going to make the world a better place. Our mission is women and gender parity in that direction. So we say women, but the more you do, the better our communities get, because it's not always the big races that everybody gets excited about. It is those little city councils and town halls that we can claim power. No one's paying attention to the small Emerge group. No one is looking. And so we can take over city councils and school boards until we get Democratic women all over the place, to the point where we're just taking over, and no one will realize that until it is too late. And that's our goal. So that can be on the recording because it's very public. We're trying to take over city councils and school boards so that we have more of a voice in our political systems. So commit to the following. One action you're going to take, make sure you commit to it by the end of the month. And then Emerge 2020 and Emerge, we're 15 years old, so I'll plug us one more time. We're hoping to be America's political pipeline for a representative democracy by 2035. We're ready to train 100,000 new American majority women. And so we're not really messing around. We're defining for us. We're looking to train women of the new American majority. We are lifting as we climb. So we want women to run for office and then put their arm right back and bring a sister up. It would not help us if you ran for office and then didn't do the work to make sure you recruited someone to take your seat. So we would be losing progress by that. So we're really lifting as we climb and being intentional about that. And we're trying to redefine politics as usual by flipping state legislatures and campaign office leadership into majority women. We're also focused on filling boards and commissions of Emerge alums. So thank you. Being here today and thinking about your own journey actually does change the face of power in politics. Wherever you land, whatever races you run for, we hope you'll touch back and let Emerge know and be part of the journey with us and keep us posted. And quite frankly, the more you run for office, win or lose, you let little girls like my daughter watching you and know that they can run for office too. And so keep on putting yourself out there and promoting yourself and being part of the solution. And I appreciate you being here today.